Well, Shabbat Shalom, everyone. It's good to be back. Greetings from Shalom Macon. Uh, and it's really neat. It's great to be back because there's no place like home and all that. But it is neat to see other congregations and what they do and how they do it, but not just the mechanics of it. It just reminds you that we're not a little, well, we are an island, but we're a group of islands, right? There's lots and lots of Messianic believers in the world and lots of congregations, and I'm sure there are going to be more, but it's encouraging to see, like, okay, well, we're not the only crazy ones. There's some other crazy people out there just like us. And so it's really good to see that and to be reminded that this is a legitimate and foundational movement that we're part of, and so it's good. But yeah, this week's Parsha is Vayishlach. Oh, put my glasses in a different place. There was a little panic there. Yeah, it's an action-packed Parsha. I'm just going to jump around as I do, but hang with me. But yeah, we know the story. This Parsha continues with Jacob. He's been in and out of the frying pan, and this week he's going to do it again in this week's Parsha. Remember, he fled Esau's wrath. He got married, has a pile of kids. He worked for 20 years for Uncle Laban. Then he flees Uncle Laban. Uncle Laban chases after him, probably with some ill will, and but God intervenes and keeps Laban in line. He says no. Genesis 32, 1 and 3. So this is just the end of last week's Parsha, leading right into this one. Chapter 32. Early in the morning, Laban got up. He kissed his grandchildren and daughters and blessed them. Then Laban left and returned to his place. While Jacob left on his way, the angels of God met him. Then Jacob said, when he saw them, this is God's camp, and he named that place Mahanaim. So you think, hey, that's great. I got a blessing. I made it through the Uncle Laban issue. I've worked really hard and had a lot of turmoil in my life. Things are going to get good, right? Well, they are going to get good, but he's out of the frying pan into the fire, because now he's headed home. And remember, Rebecca said, "Hey, go. I'll let you know when things simmer down here, right? When Esau's anger subsides." Well, she never did send that message. There's no reason to believe that Esau has simmered down or gotten over it. The coast was not clear. So Jacob's idea is to send a lot of really nice gifts, substantial gifts, out ahead of him towards Esau. And maybe that'll work, maybe not, but he has no idea, of course. Servants, they come back and they report that Esau is coming with 400 armed men, which would be substantial at any time, but that's a lot of guys. And certainly more than what Jacob could handle. So Jacob, what does he do? He prepares for the worst. He divides into two camps based on families, based on wives, and in case maybe one gets attacked, another will survive. So it's hard to get in Jacob's head here, but he really is in a desperate situation. He doesn't, based on what I'm going to read next, seem to think that things are going to go well for him. But remember, he just got through a rough patch and got a blessing, and he's naming stuff. But Jacob prays with urgency, and he recounts or reminds the father about the promises that he had already given to him, and he does it, I believe, very humbly. Genesis 32, 8 through 13. So Jacob became extremely afraid and distressed. He divided the people with him, along with the flocks and the herds and the camels, into two camps, for he thought, if Esau comes to one camp and strikes it, the camp that's left will escape. So I give props to believers that have perfect faith and they're fearless. But scary stuff is still scary. Maybe I'm too easily scared. I don't know. But y'all can quote me. Scary stuff is scary. Okay, that'll go in a book somewhere. But it goes on in verse 10. Then Jacob said, "O God of my father Abraham and God of my father Isaac, Adonai, who said to me, 'Return to your land and to your relatives, and I will do good with you.'" Again, verse 11, he's very humble. "I am unworthy of all the proofs of mercy and of all the dependability that you have shown to your servant." He's saying, hey, you've always taken care of me. You've always pulled through in the end for me. You're dependable, God. "For with only my staff I crossed over this Jordan, and now I've come to two camps." So he crossed the Jordan essentially penniless, alone, no help, no nothing. Verse 12, "Deliver me, please, from my brother's hand, from Esau's hand, for I'm afraid of him, that he'll come and strike me, the mothers with the children." So Esau's rage wouldn't necessarily be just limited to Jacob, but that he would take vengeance on Jacob by killing what Jacob probably loved the most, his wives and children, and also the people that were part of his camp. We hear a servant, you think, oh, well, they don't speak. Jacob was a worker. He was out with the flocks working. So everyone that was with him, I'm sure he knew very well, and was and probably even loved them, right? So everything was at stake for Jacob. The mothers with the children. "You yourself said, 'I will most certainly do good with you, and will make your seed like the sand of the sea that cannot be counted because of its abundance.'" So yeah, Jacob's not just thinking about himself, he's thinking of everyone. So again, the outcome's not known by Jacob, so he the next thing that happens is the incident with the man, right? We'll say the angel of the Lord, but it explicitly says the man. So next, Jacob stays behind, and he wrestles an angel all night long. The angel wrenches Jacob's hip, we remember, leaving him limping, but Jacob won't let go without a blessing. And Lisa talked about names today. The angel blesses him and gives him a new name, Israel. So what does Israel mean again? One who struggles with God. I'll read you Genesis 32:29, the Tree of Life and the complete Jewish version. It's worded a little differently. "But then he said, 'Your name will no longer be Jacob, but rather Israel, for you have struggled with God and with men, and you have overcome.'" So it's not that Jacob beat the angel of the Lord, right? Basically, he's hanging on for dear life, but he was still determined, right? He was still trying, and he wouldn't let go until he got a blessing. He struggled with men, Esau, Laban. I guess you could read it that Jacob was always starting a fight, but I just don't get that impression. It's not that he was a complete pushover, but I don't feel like he was looking for a fight. But the fact is that he had a lot of fights in his life up to that point, and was about to potentially have another with Esau. So, let's see, Genesis 32:29, the CJB version. "Then the man said, 'From now on you will no longer be called Yaakov, but Israel, because you have shown strength to both God and men and have prevailed.'" But anyway, back to Esau. It turns out Jacob's plan worked. He sent gifts out in front of him. I'm sure also God had something to do with that, right? We sort of chalk it all up to, well, Esau was just so happy with the sheep and the gifts sent, and I'm sure he was. But also remember, Jacob had turned to some serious fervent prayer. So anyway, Esau says, "Hey, come on back with me." And Jacob says, "You know what, I'll just catch up with you later." I think that was wisdom, of course. There's some talk, every line of the Bible has lots and lots written about it, that Jacob will one day keep that promise again, in the Messianic era perhaps, or the world to come. But Jacob instead, he buys some land near Shechem. And again, we read this today. Dinah, Jacob's only daughter, gets violated, and Shimon and Levi convince all the men in Shechem to get circumcised, and then they slaughter them. And, I was looking in the children's Bible. I don't see that story anywhere in there. But maybe I'll write. No. The Bible doesn't hold back on details, really, ever. And, sometimes it's awkward reading that with your kids, but you just do like a Band-Aid and rip it off. It'll be fine. Or not. But anyway, you won't find that in the children's Bible. Some good Shabbat table discussion on that is, did they sincerely convert? And everyone said no, but I said, well, maybe they did, maybe they didn't. But circumcision is a critical step into conversion if you were doing that. So, but yeah, I'm inclined to agree. It was a political move. But anyway, Jacob he's got a skedaddle again, and he goes back to Bethel, and he kept his vow to tithe to the Lord. And do y'all remember what happened at Bethel? Jacob's ladder, right? So these specific places are significant, and God is having him revisit those. Of course, we know Rachel dies, which is tragic, while giving birth to Benjamin, and she's buried near Bethlehem. Genesis 35:19. Then Rachel died and was buried on the way to Ephrath, that is Bethlehem. So we had Bethel, right? That was Jacob's ladder. Bethlehem. I don't think you guys get it confused, but I thought it's interesting. What does Bethel mean? Beth-el, house of God. And that is a little bit north of Jerusalem, just to try to visualize it. And what does Bethlehem mean? House of bread, right? And that's a little bit south of Jerusalem. And of course, we remember it's the birthplace of Yeshua, also King David. And so then Jacob finally goes. He's back in the land. Esau's gone his way. Jacob got through the Shechem incidents. He's at Bethel, and he finally goes to see his dad, Isaac, who is in Hebron. So I probably need to reverse this for the map, but I'm looking at the map, and Hebron's over this way a little bit, more in the east. And Isaac dies at 180 years old. Anyone remember? Well, I'll save that for a little later, actually. Amazingly, again, think of all the trauma and drama and scary stuff that's happened between Jacob and Esau. But when when Isaac dies, they both go together and bury dead. And that's pretty amazing. Also amazingly, they're fruitful and multiply. The land gets crowded. And instead of starting up the fight again, Esau moves far away from Jacob to give each other space, all without a fight. So let's see, where did Esau move to? Anyone remember? Super details. Genesis 36:8. So Esau lived in Mount Seir. Esau is Edom. He moved, if you can visualize the Dead Sea, sort of in the middle and south in Israel. He moved south of the Dead Sea, and it's sort of in part of modern-day southern Georgia. They have good sweet tea there because it's southern Georgia. Sorry, I just came from... Jordan, excuse me. Anyway, so finally the whole last chapter is dedicated to Esau and his descendants, and we want to make Esau the bad guy, and in many ways he is. But God did say he was going to make a great nation out of them. And so anyway, that's a quick stumbling, fumbling, bumbling, maybe to the end zone sort of synopsis of this parsha. But I get rabbit trailed all the time and trying to figure out these ages and stages and different things. I came across some interesting articles. So I think I only have one more slide left, Lois, and we're just going to ride with that till we're done. So yeah, there was a neat article that talks about how much time had elapsed between the blessing of Jacob until Isaac's death. So some quick numbers. and I know you won't be able to remember this. If I was more prepared, I guess I'd have more slides. But Abraham lived how long? 175. Sarah lived 127 years. Isaac lived 180 years. Jacob lived how long? 147. And Joseph, who's not one of the three patriarchs, who's a pretty important guy, and soon we'll be reading about him, right? Anyone remember how long he lived? 110. So, who was the longest lived patriarch? We were doing a Parsha quiz last night. Isaac, yeah, 180. So, add those all up together, and you get 612 years. That's a lot. That's a whole lot of living. But it's not linear, right? It's not one starts, finishes, next starts. You can see they overlap. So each generation overlapping the next. But they did have a habit of living a long time, and even with the overlap, Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob's lives spanned about over 300 years just together, right? And with Joseph in the mix, that's 360. I guess part of this speaks to me too, is we think 2,000 years. 2,000 years. 2,000 years is a long time, no doubt about it. But here we've got 360 years, and we read through that in a few chapters, right? So I think we get discouraged because we feel like God's taking too long. And it's good to remember that it's not that long. It's just, sometimes you have a lot of Mondays, maybe 2,000 years of Mondays, I don't know, but you'll get through it. Tuesday's coming. So anyway, and these guys they did live a long time. They took a long time to get to the benchmarks of life, right? Clearly something was different, like physically, like health-wise, maturity-wise, things we probably wish we had, now. But remember when Abraham lied about Sarah being his wife? Because she was so beautiful. Well, the first time he did that, she was in her 60s. That's in Genesis 12. The second time, she was in her late 80s and possibly pregnant with Isaac. That's in Genesis 20. Sarah was 90 when Isaac was born, and Abraham was 100. She died when she was 127. So Abraham was 137 years old when that happened, and Isaac would have been 37. I used to think 37 was old, but I don't think that anymore. And so, of course, after this, Isaac marries Rebekah. Abraham then died at 175 years old, and Isaac would have been 75 at that time. So it gets a little confusing as you're reading through, because we'll read about Abraham, and it's like an old typewriter, and then we'll go back, and then we'll read about Isaac, and so sometimes it gets, I'm easily confused, but it gets a little confusing because the stories are kind of told separate to some degree. But let's see here. So the narrative kind of jumps back and talks about Isaac. So we realize that Isaac was 40, also not that old, when he married Rebekah. We don't know how old Rebekah was, but like Sarah, she was not able to have children for 20 years, remember? Prayed for 20 years until little Esau and Jacob came along. So that means Isaac was 60 when his sons were born. Again, I'm not 60 yet, so when I'm 70, I'm sure I'll think 60 is not old either. But anyway, so who was around? We read about these stories. Look at your chart there. And I know it's hard to see. You can see at the bottom in the middle, birth of Esau and Jacob. It appears to me that Abraham was still alive when those two little guys were born. And you can't see it from the chart. But and again, these numbers are not, I'm not saying, this is set in stone, right? There's got to be some grace for it could have been shifted this way or that. But it's basically information gleaned from the Bible, and you put it all together and get a rough idea of when all this happened. Esau and Jacob would have been about 15 years old by the time Abraham died. So just think about, they they weren't necessarily in isolation. Now, how much contact did they have? Did they come over for Sunday dinner? Probably not. Did they come over for Oneg? Maybe not, But the fact is that Abraham was alive for another 15 years after Jacob and Esau were born. But yeah, Abraham might have been at the baby shower, so you never know. Next time marker, it's at the end of chapter 26. Esau marries a couple of Hittite girls and causes his parents a lot of anxiety. He was 40 years old, just like when his daddy Isaac got married. So I've asked this question before. If Esau was 40, how old was Jacob? 40. And I know you guys are really smart. I would have fell for it, though. But Isaac would have been 100. Okay? Chapter 27 opens with Isaac being old as usual, but he's thinking, hey, and I guess he was starting to physically go downhill a bit. He feels like he's going to near the end. So he decides it's time for the final blessing. I'm getting up in years. And we know what happens there. Everything kind of gets crazy. But Isaac's timing was a little off. How long was it from the blessing that Jacob got until Isaac actually died? 40 years. So here, 40 years ahead of time, and again, he doesn't know when he's going to die, right? But it took 40 years after the blessing before Isaac died, and things were sort of resolved. So Jacob and Esau, they would have been 120 when Isaac died. But anyway, after the blessing for Jacob, when Jacob got the blessing, he was sent to Laban to find a wife among Rebekah's family. Esau got married at 40. Bear with me here. So how old was Jacob when he got married to Rachel? This was kind of surprising to me. Well, remember, Esau got married when he was 40, and Jacob is almost exactly the same age as Esau. Very close. Yeah, 40, right? So here all this time has elapsed, and so add, subtract, multiply, and stand on your left foot. Jacob could have been in his 70s, right? Think about it. He was in his 70s. He owned nothing, and next thing you know, he's getting married, and of course he's farming and taking care of the animals as well. So yeah, Jacob left as a single man in his 70s, owning nothing. He returned with 2 to 4 wives, depending on how you want to label things. It's like Advil, I don't know. Anyway, 12 sons, 1 daughter, and a lot of wealth. So, question, did Isaac see the grandkids? So it seemed he would have, potentially, right? Jacob was back in the same land as Isaac for about 15 years before Isaac died. So, yeah, he might have, Isaac may have taken all those kids and got them hopped up on sugar and red dye number 40 and then sent them back to Jacob's house. You never know. It could have happened. Let's see here. Oh, remember Joseph? Yeah, Joseph's a central figure. That was, of course, one of Isaac's grandkids. Joseph would have been sold into slavery and presumed dead before Isaac died. In fact, Joseph would have been second in command in Egypt about a year after his grandfather's death. So we read these stories, or I do, and you kind of get just focused in isolation, and you forget, like, there's all these layers. I don't know, I just thought it was kind of neat. Let's see here. Jacob moved the whole family to Egypt only 10 years after Isaac's death. Jacob spent the last 17 years of his life in Egypt and lived a total of 147 years. Again, from Abraham's death to Isaac's death to Jacob's death to Joseph's, that's over 360 years from start to finish, and which is a long time, but not. Abraham's family went from being a childless couple to being a nation in those 360 years. And the blessings that God spoke to and over Abraham are still applying today. Just a reminder of of them. Genesis 22:17 and 18. I will most certainly bless you, and I will most certainly increase your descendants to as many as there are stars in the sky or grains of sand on the seashore. Your descendants will possess the cities of their enemies. Not to get into geopolitics, but there it is. And by your descendants, all the nations of the earth will be blessed because you obeyed my order. So God, and we know this, I'm preaching to the choir, God has not thrown Israel on the garbage heap. This blessing, this covenant, still applies, is still in effect today. He also hasn't thrown you on the garbage heap, right? So remember, our God is a covenant maker, and he's a covenant keeper. And I keep beating this drum, and maybe it's just because I need to hear it. He's not a covenant breaker. 300 years is a long time. 2,000 years is a long time. But God is not late. He didn't forget his keys. He hasn't forgotten. He's got this. And we shouldn't feel sorry for ourselves, or maybe Bruce should feel sorry for himself, because Yeshua is taking a long time to come back, right? And life is hard, and I'm tired of this, but it's okay. It's just a slice in time. It may feel like a big slice in time, but the reality is just a little slice in time. So Messiah has come, and he's coming again. And I was reminded of the 10 virgins, right, and with oil in their lamps. And we want to be like the 5 that brought extra oil. So, again, maybe not here so much, but there's sort of this microwave mentality, like, hey, we got to do it fast. Yeshua's coming back. I saw a guy on YouTube. I know he's coming back. I don't have to do this. I don't have to do that. No, let's have some extra oil, right? Let's be ready for the long haul. Let's be ready for the 360 years. Let's be ready for the 2,000 plus years. It's okay, but we do need to be ready and not sort of quit right before the finish line. So anyway, that is my ramble through the Parsha. Thank you guys for indulging me in my numbers and dates and ages, and it is good to be back. Shabbat Shalom.